Ladies and gentlemen, Fourth and Trollers, welcome back to Fourth and Troll Fantasy, the most entertaining fantasy football podcast on the planet. My name is Noah Selby.
And I'm Wes Selby.
And we have made it, ladies and gentlemen. The fantasy football playoffs have arrived. Oh my goodness, we are here, and we are ready to help you here in round one. Going to give you a full breakdown of week 14, talk to you about some big-time performances, some letdowns. It's going to be a good time. Before we do that, Wes, how you doing?
Shout out to our producer for getting a dance party going right before we record, because this is fresh off of the Dolphins game.
Yeah.
And we are Dolphins fans, and so that was a lot to experience and very difficult to experience. But I was in four redraft leagues. Okay, made playoffs in half. All right. So couldn't make it in one. That was really just because I drafted Garrett Wilson. And if I had known Aaron Rodgers was going to be done 4 plays in the season, I would not have drafted Garrett Wilson. The other, too little, too late. My running backs, Najee Harris, Javonte Williams, that was who I was trolling with the whole year. Messed up on that. But the other two, I'm good.
Yeah.
Trollers League, here we go, baby. Ready to prove that I know what I'm talking about. Sometimes.
Dude. Come on. Yeah, you made it in Trollers League. I did not, as I said right after we drafted our teams. My team was garbage. My team was so bad. And I really just had to hold out hope.
Au contraire.
Go ahead.
You scored a lot of points.
In Trollers League?
I'm pretty sure you scored a lot of points in
I
Trollers
think I
League.
scored so few points in Trollers League. Here, let's do a live check, because I'm pretty sure my team
I'm going to check.
Sucked. I scored I don't know. I scored the 5th most, it looks like. The 5th.
Okay.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was in the top.
Checking.
I was 8th in scoring. So not great.
You.
I do have more points than you and another playoff team. So I mean
and
hey,
you're the most
crumble.
Points scored against you. So there's only so much.
There you go.
Right. I'm just trying to.
I appreciate it, Wes. I early on I lost Nick Chubb, and I too drafted Garrett Wilson in the Trollers League. Right. So early on I had lost Chubb. I spent a bunch of fab on Kyron Williams, lost him for a while. I made the executive decision to trade, I think it was Gus Edwards and Garrett Wilson for Raheem Mostert and Zay Flowers, which if we got the last 3 weeks, Zay Flowers, I would feel really good about my gear probably by now. But listen, shout out to the Trollers for drafting teams that put me in a position to not get into the guys I wanted.
Drafted
so there you
very
go.
Well.
Yeah, they drafted very well. I was in 5 redraft leagues. I made it in 3. So that's good to
not
hear.
Bad.
Fun times. I don't know. I'll give a little plug here. Not a sponsor or anything, but there's a website called the FF Hub, which is you can input your fantasy league, and it'll give you some more analyticals and stuff like that, and some more data. They've got a fun little tab on there that is so fun, just if you're looking for some downtime and totally not wanting to be upset or anything. They've got a little tab on there called Schedule Comparison. And it shows you what your record would have been if you had someone else's schedule. And in a league that, Wes, you and I have talked about frequently on the podcast this season, our I'll say our main league, our one that we have been in together for 5 or 6 years now. A lot of the same guys in that group. We all were fun time. A lot of good friends in there. I've talked a lot about how that team is top teams in scoring, most points scored in the league. And I'm 5-9 and missing the playoffs. And I went and I plugged in my team and I looked. And I am a playoff team with anyone else's schedule but mine. And because a computer randomized my opponents to go in the order that they went in, there's a guy who's the 3rd seed in this league who has scored the fewest points in the league. I would be 13-1 with his schedule when you go and look at it. So shout out to Patrick, ridiculous. Man. Shout out to Patrick if he's listening. We hope he is. He should be, unless he doesn't want to win in the playoffs. So
he's gonna need to. He doesn't score enough.
Listen, we got a fun show for you guys today. It's gonna be a good time breaking down week 14, going into the fantasy football playoffs. Hyped up, let down. Fluke for real. Biggest waiver wire potentially of the season. If there are some big names you lost and you don't have anymore, gonna let you know who you should pick up there. And then we're going to do a Thursday night football preview a little bit differently this week, so it's going to be a fun time. Before we do all that, comment down below. Biggest comments of the season right here. Did you make the playoffs? Did you make the fantasy playoffs? Let us know. We want to know. We're excited to hear. We're going to have a check-in with and Wes, you may know this. I'm not sure. I don't know if we've intentionally checked in yet. I know he'll be reaching out soon. We're going to have a check-in with Jared, who at the beginning of the season made a deal with us saying that he is going to exclusively follow Fourth and Troll advice this season.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have an update?
Jared's in the playoffs.
Let's go, dude! Let's go! Come on, Jared! Let's get it, dude.
I don't know his seeding. But he was texting me today, just a little bit, because this is his first ever
fantasy
playing season.
Fantasy, yeah.
But he texts me, when you got a second, can you help me know how fantasy football playoffs work?
Let's go.
Do we all give our players in redraft? Like, how do we do it for the people that don't make playoffs? Do we get their players? I was like, that'd be a lot of fun. But no, people are going to compete for no reason after this point as well. So
yeah. Oh, baby. I love to hear it. All right, let's. Oh, man. I love to hear it. There you go. Shout out, Jared.
Feels good.
While you're down there commenting, it feels real good. Go ahead, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and follow us on all our socials at Fourth and Troll, on Facebook at Fourth and Troll Fantasy. Going to be dropping some content there for you. And make sure you're subscribed and actually are subscribed and ringing that bell, because coming up over the fantasy playoffs, we're going to be dropping some new videos looking forward to the 2024 fantasy season, getting a jump on that already. So it's going to be a fun time. Make sure you're doing that. And now let's get into what essentially, Wes, is that is the final news. Second to last, one of the most. Let's go to the news.
Flawless transition here. We've practically nailed this segment. We've only been doing this the entire football season. All right, so time for the news to kick off the fantasy playoffs. Start with the biggest one of the list so far. It has not been fully confirmed, but there is speculation that Justin Herbert's fractured finger that he sustained on Sunday's loss to Denver will put him out for the rest of the season. By the time you're listening to this, you will know, because he is possibly going to be having surgery. He may have already gone under the knife by the time you're listening, but that is the expectation. He is listed technically as doubtful as of tonight because they are playing Thursday, but if it's probably a season-ending injury, I don't know why they didn't just rule him out. I guess they have to decide. But that's the status. We can do a quick discussion here. I know we're going to talk about the Chargers again later on in the episode, but there's one important name that I want you to kind of break down a little bit for us from the Chargers offense without Justin Herbert. What is their quarterback's name? Easton
something. Easton Stick.
Eating Sticks is the Chargers quarterback.
Easton Stick.
I'm Eating Sticks is going to be throwing the ball to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has been fantasy elite, especially as of late. A couple down weeks, obviously, but how does that change Keenan Allen? We obviously don't bench him, but I mean, is there anything else to do for fantasy playoffs without Justin Herbert?
Close your eyes and pray when Keenan Allen's in your lineup.
Fair enough.
Essentially, is where we're at. Also, I mean, here's the thing: Keenan Allen went 6 catches for 68 yards on 8 targets, all of that with Easton Stick. And he had a 33% target share against a good Broncos defense. All of this happened with a guy who didn't prep the week, who didn't know he was going to be playing. So we still start Keenan Allen. That still happens. I am grateful that in 2 of the 3 leagues where I made playoffs, and I am a Keenan Allen owner in those leagues, that I have a first round bye, so I get a chance to see how this is going to look before
that is very nice.
Super okay with rolling him out. Otherwise, I may look at another option if it doesn't go how we're hoping. But you still roll out Keenan Allen. He had over a 30% target share, 6 for 68, 8 targets against a good defense. Just temper your expectations. But also, there's a chance he's had a game with 20 targets this season. There's a chance Brandon Staley goes, screw it. I don't know how to win. So we're gonna just throw him the ball.
That's true.
Just throw the ball to him. So that's where we're at with Keenan, and hopefully we get some more insight before Thursday night. But it doesn't look great. So you hope that he will pull through for you for maybe 13 to 15 points.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really the target. That's really where Keenan Allen has been such a fantasy impact, is how many targets he gets. It's just ridiculous. He will, again, probably finish with over 100 targets. Could you fact check me as I do the rest of the news, how many targets Keenan Allen has on the season?
Yep.
It'll be very interesting to find out. Okay, so that's the update for the Chargers. Let's move over to another quarterback situation in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski declared that Joe Flacco is the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback for the rest of the season. And he's balling out. We're going to talk about him and Fluke for real, especially because, oh my. So the Vikings are once again evaluating who the starting quarterback will be for this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, Josh Dobbs has dissipated from what we thought was an incredible offseason or midseason change, but things are still up in the air. They did win 3-0, but this is also important because now Justin Jefferson suffered a chest injury during the game. He was taken to a local hospital for an evaluation. Kevin O'Connell stated that the hospitalization was to prevent anything from being too serious and maybe to have prevented him from coming home. His status right now is still questionable for the week. Makes me wonder where Justin Jefferson is going to play next year, because he said if the Vikings are not a contender, we'll see what happens. Okay. Geno Smith was ruled out Sunday with a groin injury, almost game time decision. We will need to monitor that situation during the rest of the week. Otherwise, Drew Lock will be under center once again. Do you have our target count for Keenan Allen?
I do. Yeah, he is at through 13 games. He is at 150 targets. And his career high for a season is 159. So he is going to shatter his target count there. It's funny.
That's crazy.
By week 7, he was at let's make sure I'm doing this math right. Hang on. Sorry. Fast math.
Quick maths.
By week 7, he was at 64 targets. So that's
wow
how that goes there.
Okay.
His target counts over the last 5 games: 14, 16, 16, 9, and 12. And
holy cow!
8 of those came from eating sticks. So we'll see what happens.
Eating sticks, yeah.
Yep.
That's what happens when Mike Williams is out for the season and Quentin Johnson was the wrong wide receiver to draft.
Yeah, there you go.
So that'll do it. Okay, let's finish up with the news here. CJ Stroud left with a concussion. He will have to clear protocol to play again this week. I don't think I know who the Texans' backup quarterback is. Let's hope we don't have to
Long
find
neck Mills,
out.
baby. Davis Mills.
Oh, that's right. Of course it's Davis Mills. Okay. Hey, I should mention this with a Cleveland update as well, but Jerome Ford sustained a hand injury. He had x-rays that came back negative, but his status is still in question. Kareem Hunt would likely have the backfield to himself if anything was to change for his status. Dalton Kincaid hurt his shoulder in their very interesting matchup against the Chiefs. There wasn't much time left in the game for him to return. He was officially listed as probable by that point, but it's still worth keeping an eye on just in case there are any setbacks, and also for those that have held on to Dawson Knox or want to pick him up for whatever reason. Josh Jacobs has an apparent quad injury that would have listed him as a did not participate on the practice report if the Raiders practiced Monday, but since they play Thursday, they did not practice. And since they play Thursday, just be prepared to make any kind of adjustments should Josh Jacobs' quad injury be significant enough that he has to miss this week. That's it for the news. Now, let us recap the final regular season week of the fantasy football season.
Let us be hyped up.
Who got us hyped up?
And let down. Listen, hyped up, short and sweet this week, but some big-time performances and some fun times that you had if you had these guys on your fantasy team. Starting out with Lamar Jackson, 37.6 fantasy points, increasing his bid for the MVP award. He is absolutely killing it. What a fun game that was against the Rams in the rain. One that we were all thinking this game might suck. It's going to be low scoring. It's terrible weather. And it was absolutely awesome and had a crazy finish there. The punt return in overtime. On the other side of the football there, though, in that same game, Matthew Stafford also hyped up 29.6 fantasy points. He has had an unbelievable last 3 games, and he is ready to carry people to some fantasy football championships. This was the Matthew Stafford we thought, hey, if he's healthy and he's ready, this is why he was closer inside of my top 12 than most people here, and why we were both a little more excited about Matthew Stafford. He has had an awesome last 3 weeks, and 29.6 points is definitely acceptable for him. Deebo Samuel, I'm ready. I'm ready to make a claim, to admit it.
Yeah.
I was wrong on Deebo, dude. What is going on? Since he's returned from his injury,
I was going to say the same thing.
7 touchdowns in his last 5 games. Dude is an animal. And this 49ers offense is humming. They look so good. I literally was hearing people say, like, I don't know if they can do anything wrong. I don't know if they can do a wrong thing. Like, come out, first play of the game, McCaffrey, 73 yards. And then it's Jordan Mason. And even Jordan Mason's like, I play for the 49ers. Move. I'm going to score a touchdown now. Like, that's how this is going to go. So, man, and Deebo Samuel's just been awesome. And that doesn't diminish Brandon Ayuk. It's not it's like a stab to him or to us for being high on Ayuk as well. But Deebo's been great. Another guy who was a playoff hero last season, looking like he could be again this season. Hadn't scored a touchdown all season until 2 weeks ago. And then he scored 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. Evan Ingram getting us hyped up, 32.5 fantasy points with no Christian Kirk. Lord. He seems to be getting 12 targets. 11 catches for 95 and 2 touchdowns.
Tight end.
What a freaking beast.
Goodness.
The Jaguars were down in that game, and like it was Zay Jones had like 14 targets. I believe Calvin Ridley had 13. Evan Ingram had 12. The passes were being funneled to those 3 guys, and Evan Ingram is ready to carry some more people to some championships here. Last guy who got us hyped up, Drake London. Dude, I was watching this game. This might have been a bit of like a coming out party for Drake London. Absolutely dominant in this game. 10 catches for 172 yards on 11 targets. I don't trust Desmond Ridder.
Impressive game.
But I'm going to be watching for whoever the Falcons quarterback ends up being next season, because Drake London might be up there on my list for receivers to be targeting in the draft next year. He looks freaking was awesome. That was so good. And now let's get let down.
Gosh.
And I'm looking at this list right here. And the amount of names on this list that I think every single person on this let down list was started confidently in fantasy football this week. Jalen Hurts, 8.8 fantasy points. His worst fantasy football performance of his career. And just the 3rd time in his career he has had single-digit fantasy points. I don't know if he's not fully healthy. I don't know what it is, but this is 2 weeks in a row where Hurts has been pretty dominated. It's a little stinky in here, a little poopy diaper for Jalen Hurts this week. I think. I don't know.
Can I just have a quick victory lap on following through with what I said last episode by choosing to start Justin Fields over Jalen Hurts?
Yes, dude. What a play.
I did not anticipate this. I was just very high on Justin Fields, and that was great. I think Fields was a top 3 quarterback on the week, but I mean, I did not see this. And you even made the pushback on my comment on starting Fields over Hurts. You said, really? Are you sure? Geno Smith just tore up the Cowboys defense. You want to not start Hurts? And I was like, I mean, I don't want to not start Hurts. I just really want to start Fields. But the Eagles, I'll tell you what, there are 2 Super Bowl teams. There are 2 teams, 2 potential Super Bowl teams that have players that are on this list that looked bad this week. And I wonder how many people missed playoffs because of these people on this list. Heartbreaking finish for a lot of these players.
Yeah, no, 100%. And just be let down with us. Here we go. Mike Evans, 1.8 fantasy points. Jared Goff, 8.4. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5.1. Sam Laporta, 4.7. Those Lions are stinky. I was starting those guys in multiple places, and that was terrible.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs, 6.4 fantasy points. What? We're in a game where Gabe Davis scored 0 points? Stephon Diggs scored 6.4? Are we serious here? Alvin Kamara, 13.5. Jamar Chase, 5.9. Brandon Cooks, 5.7. Tua Tagovailoa against a pass-funnel Titans defense, 9.1 fantasy points. Tyreek Hill, granted, he was hurt for nearly the full game, in and out of the lineup, very selective on where he was going to play. Even when he came back and he was getting back into the game, he was going in and out, very particular plays. 10.1 fantasy points for Tyreek. And Jordan Love, a guy we were just praising, 10.9 fantasy points and a loss to the Giants. Tyreek Hill and Tua, a loss to the Titans. I mean, some very uncharacteristic performances this week for players that should be on lots of fantasy playoff teams. Let's hope we get a turnaround here in week 1, dude. I'm not sure. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah. I've got one take I want to share before we go into Fluker for real, if you'll let me.
You may.
Thank you. I don't think Tua Tagovailoa is very good in primetime. You go back, look historically, last few primetime games, starting to feel like Kirk Cousins. When the sun is up, Tua is balling out. But you look just this season against the Titans, very bad. Against the Patriots in week 2, very bad. Against the Eagles in week 9 or something, not very good.
Yeah.
But go back to last season. You and I were at the Chargers game Sunday night last season.
Yeah,
that was horrible. That was horrible. But before that, the Steelers, Tua's first game back from concussion, 1 touchdown, 180 yards, something like that. It was bad. And this is just how he has been under the lights. I don't know if that's something to pay attention to next season, because I don't think the Dolphins have any more primetime games going forward. But I'm going to propose this idea that Tua Tagovailoa may not be very good in primetime.
I can feel what you're saying, and the performances speak for themselves. The one outlier was last year, week 15 at Buffalo in the snow.
At Buffalo, that was
a really solid game for Tua. 17 for 30, 234, 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. So he looked good then, but I think it's tough. I think it's something that this should have been a good matchup, and I'll add to your take, and we'll kind of close it on that. Is that in leagues where I have Tua. One of them is the league we just spoke about earlier, Wes. I did not make playoffs there. In my other league where I have Tua and I've made playoffs, I have the week 1 bye. So I'm grateful for that I don't have to deal with figuring out if I'm going to play Tua against the Jets. But I picked up Kyler Murray for this reason. I'm not playing Tua against Dallas or Baltimore in the fantasy football semifinals or championship. I rather start, and I know this is crazy, I rather start Kyler Murray against Chicago and Philly. He's got the rushing upside. Those are games where Kyler should have to run. They should be behind. They should have to throw the ball. They have better matchups than Baltimore and Dallas for Tua. And this is something that I prepped for this, and I held on to Kyler in these leagues for weeks now because I knew if or when I make playoffs, I'm not feeling good about Tua playing the Jets, Baltimore, and Dallas for the fantasy football playoffs. Tua's solid. The offense is great. Hard. They have a very good offense. The offense hums. Tua against the Jets 3 weeks ago, 11.8 fantasy points. I was saying I'm benching Tua this week because 1, I think the Jets aren't very good. 2, you just run the ball against the Jets. 3, I think the Dolphins are just going to be up and they're not going to have to use Tua. That could be the case next week. And then with Dallas and Baltimore, we just saw Hurts have his lowest game of the season. And we saw, yes, Stafford had a shootout, but the Baltimore defense has been very good this year. I don't think Tua should be started in the fantasy football playoffs if you have. And it's disappointing as Dolphins fans, as fans of fantasy football. Listen, I hope I'm jinxing myself. I'm hoping to do the thing that we do, and I'm hoping Tua comes out and goes for 404 every single one of these games, and the Dolphins coast through these next 4. I hope, right? But the history will show, and the matchups themselves, it's not great. So I feel like we let our Dolphins fanhood jump in there a little bit, but also valuable information here about Tua. If you are a Tua owner and you're in the playoffs with him, maybe if there are other options.
You have a quarterback that's throwing to Tyreek Hill. I think you're still going to roll him out the way that people rolled out Kirk Cousins last year just because of Justin Jefferson. So,
sure.
But I hear what you're saying against the Jets defense and then to go right after that into, or actually not into Dallas because it's in Miami, but to play Dallas.
Yeah.
Now, last season, the way Dolphins came back, Tua threw 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter against the Ravens, and that was the first time we saw, oh, hey, Tua, McDaniel, Tyreek, this is a real thing. So I wonder what kind of glimpses and reflection from that we will see against Baltimore. But I understand how people like you and others would say, I need to prepare in the event that I begin to doubt Tua's fantasy production. But point being, especially got if we let down big.
Yeah, big time letdown. And especially if we hear more about Tyreek Hill that, hey, maybe he's not going to be able to suit up for this Jets game. Maybe on a short week, maybe he won't be able to. Especially if we hear that, if I'm a Tua owner, I'm not rolling him out against the Jets.
Like, there's no Tyreek Hill. I'm not going to start Tua.
Yeah, no. The player who gives you the biggest big play ability in the NFL, and if he's out of the game, you have less and less confidence in starting his quarterback. I held on to Kyler for these moments, these situations. I knew Kyler had a good playoff schedule. I'm grateful I have the first round bye in the leagues where I'm going to start him because he does play San Francisco in week 15, but the Chicago and Philly matchups are really, really positive for Kyler. So I'm hoping there, and I'm feeling good about that decision I made. Let's jump into Fluke for real. We got some players to talk about here, some good and some bad. Let's start out with Evan Ingram. I think this is for real. Wes, 32.5 fantasy points is a hell of a ceiling performance for him, but he's going to see these kind of looks going forward from Trevor Lawrence. This Jaguars team has lost a few. They don't have they don't have Christian Kirk. They're wanting to maintain their position in the playoffs. Just as you said, Wes, teams that need to make the playoffs in the NFL are the best fantasy players to have. Evan Ingram is one of them. So there you go. 32.5 from him is an exciting game.
I want to take just one brief moment to look at how Evan Ingram did last year. So for Let me pull this up.
I know later in the playoffs it was disappointing because I know he was almost my playoff hero last year.
Yeah.
But he definitely showed up towards the end of the year.
Week 14 last year. 28.2 points.
Mm-hmm.
Check out this stat line. 11 catches, 15 targets, 162 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's standard, so let me change that to PPR because that's what we're using as well. So that was a 39.2 performance. And then 14 points right after. And then 18 points right after. And then championship weekend, 4 points.
Yeah, dude, he's such a
so that
was the historical don't play your pass catchers against the Texans matchup where we were like, I don't know.
Oh, that's when they were amazing.
Because it wasn't even that. It was just like, you can just kind of run all over the Texans. So we're just Travis Etienne and roll them out and we'll see what happens here. And so it was let's hope for better things. And I think we will see better things to come here. I think Trevor Lawrence needs to lock in. I think he's going to continue going to Evan Ingram. So this is for real. Drake London felt like a bit of a coming out game for in my opinion. Unfortunately, Desmond Ridder is still his quarterback. So 29 points is not for real going forward here. But like I said, we're going to keep an eye on who his quarterback is next season because he's talented. He was drafted top 10 for a reason. He's a talented player. And maybe this is what we're looking at for the future here.
And they're all running for that NFC South title, and the Falcons believe they have a shot. So they're going to keep going to the playmakers. I would say they keep going to the playmakers.
Hope. Yeah.
Actually, that we had 3 first-round Falcons starting skill positions that had a solid week this week. So who knows? Maybe something has changed over there for Arthur Smith, but I'm buying in on Drake London.
Yeah, I think he'll be good.
Playoffs, let's do it.
It doesn't matter because I didn't make playoffs in our League West, but I don't know if you saw the guy who had Drake London before this week dropped him. He was like, he hasn't really done anything this season. And I picked him up, and I was like, it's Drake London. I'd rather have him on my team than like Jalen Hyatt or something. Like, I'll just pick him up and just see. There you go. Drake London will lead me through the consolation bracket, I guess. So
what a loser.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. He's a 1 seed in our league, by the way. Anyways, Jake Browning, 27.7 fantasy points. Jake Browning, man. Now, listen, I will say, the Indianapolis Colts can't defend a running back screen, apparently, because he had like 2 of these plays where like Joe Mixon didn't score, but he had a screen that he broke for like 50 yards. And then Chase Brown, rookie running back out of Syracuse, takes one like 65 yards to the house. And so like half his yards and touchdowns came on like a couple screen passes. Only 4 targets for Jamar Chase, who that wasn't great. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to argue like 2 weeks in a row inside like the top 4 or top 5 in fantasy quarterbacks, but I don't know if I'm just bought in. I think this is still kind of fluky.
Well, here's what I'll say. 2 things. One, it's so funny because everyone will share memes about Jake Browning's success, and there, there's an idea of Jake Browning on the bench as Joe Burrow has his headset on, is talking and kind of help coach Jake Browning. And people are saying, oh, look, it's Drew Bledsoe and Tom Brady. Like, people have taken this idea so far as if like this injury has just knocked out Burrow.
Yeah.
Let's pump the brakes on Jake Browning. He's doing great. This is exactly what you want in a backup. He's the backup for a good reason.
Yeah.
But you take a look at the rest of the Bengals schedule here, this playoffs. They're playing the Vikings, then the Steelers, and then championship weekend against the Chiefs.
Yeah, the matchups are terrible.
I'm going to continue to say that Jake Browning is not going to be your playoff quarterback. You're not going to the championship with Browning. But we continue to see the rest of the Bengals offensive players succeed with Browning. So Browning's success for the Bengals team, again, I'm willing to say yes, but I'm not buying into Browning. I don't think he's going to have a rushing touchdown again. That seems improbable to me.
Yeah, I don't think he'll. I mean, so here's the thing: he has scored Yeah, he scored 2 rushing touchdowns in each of his 2 games, but it's I think I'm just not sold. I'm not. I think I thought I was for a second when I saw his performance, and then I went back and looked at it and I was like, I don't think that's actually what we think it was. So it's a great story. Good for him. I don't know if you saw he had family up in a box in a suite at the Bengals stadium. I don't know if you saw this clip in his post game presser. He was asked about his family up in the box, and he was like, I did not buy that. That is not my suite. Joe was kind enough to give my family and friends some tickets because that was his suite, and he was kind enough to let them come out and watch me. So thanks to him. So great story. Good for Jake Browning, and maybe he'll maybe this is a start. Maybe he'll get an opportunity somewhere next season, but we'll have to see. As for now, I'm not rolling him into any fantasy lineups though. David Njoku is somebody that's intriguing. I think 6 catches on 8 targets for 91 and 2 touchdowns, and 27.1 fantasy points, and I think that's because his new quarterback Joe Flacco was a 26 of 45 threw 45 balls for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I know. But I think that's what the Browns are going to do, dude. I don't think they have much of a run game going, and I think they're just going to let Flacco sling it 40 times a game. I've got notes on this for a little later in the show, but he's got 89 pass attempts in his last 2 games. He has 44 passes. Oh my gosh. He threw 44 balls last week and 45 balls this week.
Jeez.
As far as Flacco, dude, I think this might be for real. And that's all I want to say on it, because I will talk about him a little bit later. But for Njoku, I think he's going to benefit. I think they're going to be passing the ball a lot, and I think this is a good thing for Njoku. 8 targets. Amari Cooper saw a lot of targets as well. Like I think this is a good thing for Njoku owners.
Njoku was a top 10 tight end for you. You called him probably the most athletic tight end in the NFL. He is gifted. He is talented. There is something that has not worked with Deshaun Watson. We could have told you that earlier, Browns. But I do think that you can roll out Njoku as a playoff hero if he's still for some reason available. But let's go, Brownies.
Yeah.
Brownie the Elf.
Go.
Playoff team? Come on.
Njoku's
4th seed, maybe?
Njoku's on fire, baby. Njoku's on fire. Let's go, man. Come on.
Oh, my gosh.
Cooper Kupp, 25.5 fantasy points. He might be back. I don't know. The connection looks good. Stafford looks good. I mean, if anything, this gives me the confidence to keep him in my lineup because I know where the potential can go.
Yeah, I think you keep him in the lineup. If I'm playing against someone that has Cooper Kupp, I still feel like I have a chance.
Right.
Like I'm worried.
Oh, nice. They're like risking out Kupp there. But if I have Cooper Kupp, I'm like,
yeah.
All right, baby, come on.
I've got to risk him out.
Let's keep it going. So yeah. I mean, we'll see. But
it's a great stat line.
Yeah, definitely. Another guy here, Joe Mixon, a guy that Wes we talked about. It was like 5 or 6 weeks ago. Maybe it was like 4 weeks ago. I don't know. Maybe it was like 4 weeks ago. I literally was like, we haven't said Joe Mixon's name once this entire season. And now we've talked about him every single Tuesday show since that episode. 21.5 fantasy points.
Yeah.
21 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. 3 catches for 46 receiving yards. 21.5 fantasy points. It was something that we said in the aftermath of the Joe Burrow injury. What's going to happen with Joe Mixon? Joe Mixon's going to benefit. He's going to see more opportunities. 25 opportunities in this game for Joe Mixon. It's good things. Keep rolling them out. And if you held on that long, you're in a good spot. I feel good if I'm a Joe Mixon owner right now.
100%. It's happy to see for people that have Mixon, and it's exactly what you said. This is what it looks like without Burrow. You're going to depend on everybody else, and Mixon's the guy.
Yeah. Garrett Wilson, another guy here, 20.1 fantasy points. Zach Wilson came in. He said, F it. What am I going to do? Get benched again? I'm just going to play like I want to play. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it all out there on the field. 14 targets for Garrett Wilson, 9 for 108, 3 yards on the ground. Fluke.
Yeah, Fluke.
Yeah,
that's Fluke. Sorry,
guys. Odell Beckham Jr., 19.7 fantasy points, 4 catches on 10 targets for 97 yards and a touchdown. OBJ has quietly been really, really solid over the last 6 weeks. I believe 5 out of his last 6 games, he has like 12 or more fantasy points with a little bit of a ceiling around 20. He might be a flex play. He might be a flex play for the playoffs, dude.
It's possible. The 10 targets is really nice. I do know that OBJ kind of came alive with the Rams 2 years ago in the last stretch of the regular season. So it's I'm willing to say for real, but there are a number of players that I would still continue to start my flex over OBJ. But I'm definitely considering him going forward.
Absolutely. And I can agree with that. And it's definitely something just worth keeping in mind. 11 or more fantasy points in 4 of his last 5 games. He played his highest snap share that he's played in the last 5 weeks this past weekend. He finishes the wide receiver 8 this week. He's got 3 finishes inside the top 20 in those last 5 games.
Yeah.
Interesting play. We'll have to see what happens here. Another guy who's very interesting and someone we got to look at here is Isaiah Likely. 5 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. Obviously, he's a big play touchdown. I think it was about a 50-yard touchdown. So that obviously helped. But Lamar Jackson likes tight ends, dude. I think this might be a little bit for real. I think Isaiah Likely in the landscape of the tight end position is somebody you need to keep rolling out.
Isaiah Likely could be a starting tight end on a lot of football teams. I think he is very good. And he filled in for Mark Andrews. I believe it was last year when Andrews was hurt. And in the same game that Andrews went down, Likely got a touchdown. He is good. He is legit. And so Isaiah Likely is for real. And this is what I do expect. It's partly why I was a little hesitant on OBJ, because I know what I have with Zay Flowers, and we know how good Likely is. So in my mind, OBJ is still the third option for Lamar Jackson, at least should be, because of how good Likely is. So this is it. I really like Likely. I think if you are struggling in the tight end spot and you have Likely or he's still available, you can start Isaiah Likely for the playoffs and will make championship because of Likely. Not alone, but he will be a big reason why you do make championships should you make it.
Yeah, he'll be a big-time contributor, that's for sure. A few here, Wes, that I'll go through pretty quick because, and you tell me if I'm wrong, to me, these all feel like flukes. Javonte Williams, 18.1. Davis Allen, rookie tight end for the Rams, 15 points. Kyle Pitts, 14.7 points. And Wan'Dale Robinson, 17.5 points. All of those feel like flukes to me. Am I reaching on any of those, or those? What do you think?
I agree. We've gone back and forth on Javonte Williams so much that I understand that people may be obligated to still start him, or they may not have a better option, or whatever the circumstance is. Javonte Williams, I won't be upset if someone's like, well, I'm going to just start Javonte Williams. It's the best I've got. But as far as a frustrating season for fantasy and the ups and downs from Javonte Williams, that is for real. But yeah, it's totally possible that Javonte Williams next week gets 7 points. So yeah, as far as fluke or for real, sure, fluke.
Yeah,
for all of them,
I think so.
All the ones that you just listed.
Yeah, last few I want to talk about here real quick, and I just want to give a special shout out to Jaden Reed with 20.5 fantasy points and his best Alvin Kamara impression on Monday Night Football. 8 catches for 27 yards. Now, listen, even if he just had receiving work, that's a 10.7 point day. You probably started Jaden Reed in your flex. 10.7, you probably wouldn't be super disappointed on. But this guy's a bit of a gadget. He's a little bit like Debo. He's obviously not as very good run after catch. This game was a surprise win for the Giants. The Packers, it was quite uncharacteristic for them to struggle the way they did. So, interesting things there, and this could
both
be
Monday night games.
Yeah. This could be a one-off case. But he's a bit of a gadget player because he has 4 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown. He scores on a 15-yard run on a bit of like a little Debo type play, it feels like. And so with Jaden Reed, he's been very good in this role for the last 7 or 8 weeks. I think this is for real. I think Jaden Reed is a worthy flex player in the fantasy playoffs.
If you were to say Wan'Dale Robinson was for real with that same stat line, I would question you.
Yeah.
But Jaden Reed, Packers fans can talk about Jaden Reed. Packers fans know that he's legit. And it's interesting, too, because it's almost like the way the Chiefs have been for a lot of this season is trying to find the true number 2, because Christian Watson was definitely the number 1, or at least poised going into the season as the wide receiver 1. And he missed a few games to start out the season. Romeo Doubs looked good. And then you talked about Wicks. What's his first name?
Dontavion Wicks.
Dontavion.
Yeah.
Dontavion Wicks, he's been in an uptick too for trending for waiver wires. So people are trying to find that other Packers wide receiver. Jaden Reed put his name in the hat. And when you have rushing upside too, I'm very intrigued. So I will buy it. I won't start him. I'm not going to start him in the playoffs, but I will pick him up if he's available.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is, but I'm going to say for real with you on this.
Yeah, if he's out there, he's definitely worth grabbing, and we're keeping an eye on for sure. Last couple. Tajay Spears, 17.2 fantasy points, does pretty much nothing on the ground, but it was a great PPR asset for fantasy football on Monday night.
A lot of good third down conversions, too.
Yeah. We love Tajay Spears, Wes. We've talked about him frequently on the show. He's a guy that we're excited about. If Derrick Henry is potentially not there next year, he's got a really good opportunity coming for himself. I'm not sold. I'm not ready to start Tajay Spears in the fantasy playoffs off of this performance, but it was great. It was great to see the usage be where it was, and him be kind of an Austin Eckler type player. It seems like, and it feels like he has the potential to be. So more of a thing to keep in mind, I think, for next season, not so much immediately this season impact for me with Tajay Spears off this performance.
That's possible. I think it is also possible that he is involved enough in the PPR game to be a legitimate 15-point projection or 15-point hopeful for people, which should be fine for a flex option. But his snap count is also something to take note of because he is seeing a lot. It was 67%, not from this Monday night game against the Dolphins, but the week before. So when you're on the field that much, I mean, it's almost in the way that speaking of Dolphins, the way they use Achane and Mostert. It's like they get in the goal line area, it's Mostert because he's the power back. He's also very fast too. But when they're wanting to throw the ball, yes, they'll throw it to Mostert. Yes, they'll throw it to Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry actually had a very impressive leaping catch on the sideline by himself. But it was like he's got ups. Tajay Spears seems to be the PPR back. So I am more inclined to start Tajay Spears than you probably are. But I'm not saying roll him out. He's a playoff hero. But I think coming off a win off of a playoff team like the Dolphins, there's a chance they're like, this is the trio. Yeah. This is the trio. We've got Will Levis, Tajay Spears, and DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, which leads us to DeAndre Hopkins to close out the good side of Fluke for real. DeAndre Hopkins with 25.4 fantasy points, 7 catches for 124 yards and a touchdown. Another 12-target game, Wes. Early in the season, he had a game against the Colts, and he had 12 targets with Ryan Tannehill, and we said he's not going to have 12 targets again in a single game. And since Will Levis has come in, I believe this is his second or third game with 12 targets. D-Hop's a legit fantasy play down the stretch here. If they are going to be trying to come back in games, he's legit. And we saw it firsthand against our Dolphins, against a good defense, that they were running some high tempo. Levis was locked in on Hopkins, and 25.4 points shows for it. I think this is somebody that you can trust in your lineup in the fantasy playoffs. And it feels like, again, Ezekiel Elliott and DeAndre Hopkins, it feels like we're back in 2016 with some of these guys who can help us in the fantasy stretch here. So, sad as a Dolphins fan.
Hopkins must be in your lineup.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. after watching Monday night against the Dolphins, DeAndre Hopkins must be in your fantasy lineups. If you want to have a shot to make championships, I think Hopkins is your answer. Legitimately. Dolphins cornerbacks are no joke. I mean, what essentially looked like a Hail Mary in the first half, I have no idea how he caught that behind Xavier Howard. That was insane. Yeah. Some great toe touch catches on the sideline. He looks vintage Houston Texans DeAndre Hopkins from Monday night. I think people are going to win because of Hopkins. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a fluke. I think this is for real, and I think this is scary to go up against Hopkins.
100%. This is for real. You can roll out DeAndre Hopkins with confidence. He will be a fantasy football hero for the playoffs this year. He will help bring people championships. He is looking fantastic, and Will Levis is looking for him often. So good things there on the good side of Fluke or for real. And out to the bad side, Patrick Mahomes. Rumor has it he's still complaining about that offsides call on Kadarius Toney.
I'm just upset about the greatness for Travis Kelce.
It's going to affect his playoff.
It's just like his Hall of Fame career.
It's going to affect his playoff and Hall of Fame legacy.
Yeah, what they're going to show is real. He's going to not show that great play. That's part of his greatness.
Because of a penalty? Really? A penalty? A play that isn't allowed to happen? And we're going to stop a play because a thing that isn't allowed to happen happened? I'm Patrick Mahomes. That's my auto. You've seen the commercial.
Come on. I was going to say that.
Mahomes in my auto.
It's going to affect my autos. It's going to affect my autos Hall of Fame legacy.
Jake from State Farm would never call that penalty.
Okay, sorry.
Listen,
sorry. Thank you.
I'm going to pull up Mahomes' game log here because it's not been good. I'll say this: 15.6 points is for real with Patrick Mahomes. I was 1 year early on doubting him.
You were
1 year early. 2022. I was like, he's like going to be like QB8. Like he can't do what he did with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in this offense. He's not going to be able to do it without him. Well, he's currently the QB8, and I was 1 year early. This is his game log going back to week 8. 15, and this is 6-point passing touchdowns. This is probably even better than your here. I actually have him. I'm going to do this because I have him in a league where it is not 6-point passing touchdown, and I want to just get this fully correct here. In standard 4-point passing touchdown. Week 8. Sorry, I'll go back. I'll start from now. 14.6, 14, 20.8, 17.8, 15.8, 7.6, 35, 18, 19, 15, 26, 22, 20. We got.
Gosh.
We had the 3 games to start. Okay. They were really good. And then we had a handful of down games. We had 3 down games. And then we had the Chargers game with 35 points. And we were like, nah, he's got to be in the lineup. You can't take him out. 7.6, 15.8, 17.8, 20.8, 14, 14.6. I have Patrick Mahomes in a dynasty league. I'm in the playoffs in round 1. I do not have a round 1 bye. I'm starting Sam Howell over Patrick Mahomes in the fantasy football playoffs. I cannot trust Patrick Mahomes to be in my lineup. I can't do it. I know he's Mahomes. I get it. The track record says it. It's been 7 games of garbage. It's been 7 games of garbage from Patrick Mahomes for fantasy football. I can't trust him in my lineup for the fantasy playoffs. There's zero way I can trust him in my lineup. There are some leagues where I have to. And I'm scared. Like, it does not look good. I'm starting Sam Howell over Patrick Mahomes in round 1 of the fantasy playoffs. This sucks. He's been so bad this year for fantasy.
Yeah.
It's been so bad. This is for real. 15.6 is for real. The offense is not scoring points like they have in the past. They're scoring a full touchdown less per game this season than they did last year. And what happened? They lost Juju Smith-Schuster. Is Juju Smith-Schuster that good? Juju for MVP, I guess. Confirmed. This is terrible from Mahomes for fantasy football. A guy we all drafted in the second round. We drafted him in the second round of the fantasy drafts this season. And he's averaging like 15 fantasy points over the last 2 months. He's been terrible. You cannot roll out Patrick Mahomes for the fantasy football playoffs. He has to be benched.
That was the point I was going to make that you just touched on. We drafted him in the second round. It was second round. When you're drafting a quarterback that early, and you and I have always been people that have said just wait to the end, because at the end, in the 9th and 10th round, there was Tua and Kirk Cousins for several weeks, and apparently Sam Howell just waiting with open arms. Brock Purdy was there. Jordan Love was there. Quarterbacks get you 20 points almost every week. When you're drafting a quarterback in the second round, you have to expect them to get 30 points. That's the thing. It's not because he's just a very good football player. In fantasy, you want 30 points. That's why at the same time, people were drafting Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. And I know Hurts just had his worst ever game in fantasy, but Hurts has been amazing all year. And Josh Allen is the number one scoring fantasy player this season. Mahomes is not just disappointing for his standards, but disappointing as a second round pick. It just feels like a second round bust because of where his ADP is. So I'll double down with you. Don't start Patrick Mahomes because of everything you just said. There's nothing else to add to it. You can't start Mahomes. And I'm just going to keep getting upset. There's nothing else to add, but it's so frustrating. I just want to add, you remember weeks ago during the Thursday night game, we were doing a must starts, risky starts, don't starts. It was the Chiefs. Not the Thursday to open the season against the Lions, but another one. You said you must start Patrick Mahomes. Hear me out. Because it's Mahomes, but there was already a conversation. Do you remember this? You had to say you should still start Mahomes because it was already conversation like 6 weeks into the season. Like, hey, you just keep going on Mahomes because of Mahomes. Like, I know it's not been great, but like genuinely, I need to tell people to start Mahomes. Now, here we are telling people with confidence to bench Patrick Mahomes. What a season.
He has one top 10 weekly finish in the last 6 weeks. Disgusting. He has 5 on the year in 13 games. It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. Retire.
Gross.
Just retire. That's pretty much where we should go.
Yeah.
You get the bag anyways, so there you go. You get the Omaha Productions. Omaha! You got the Omaha Productions deal for the quarterback series, so there you go. Last ones here we'll go through pretty quick. Zach Moss, 9.6 points. This has been a bit of a bummer. I figured he was going to be a bit of a league winner coming down the stretch, and because of the running back landscape, I think you kind of still have to start him. I'm not sure what the Colts' schedule is going forward, but probably a matchup-based play. But because of the volume he gets, he's still got 19 opportunities in this game. It's just not been great. Hopefully he can bounce back a little bit, but unless you're desperate, probably sit him for round 1 of the playoffs. That's what I'll say.
Steelers next week. Falcons the week after. Falcons have a great rush defense. They have allowed the second fewest points to running backs. And then championship weekend is against the Raiders.
So maybe some spot starts if he's on your team and you get to a point where maybe you're comparing matchups, maybe he's in consideration. But this has been a bummer for Zach Moss for sure.
I'll say for real. I say for real.
This feels for real. Yeah, I mean, even with the bad performances, I believe he's still been like the 8 or 9, 10 points, something like that. It's been bad. It's been a real bad performance the past couple weeks. Gus Edwards, 1.5 points. This is what happens when he doesn't score touchdowns. This is for real. 6 carries for 15 yards.
It's like you said that or something.
Yeah, almost like it. There you go. Josh Dobbs. Oh, what a terrible game. What a historically terrible game for the Minnesota Vikings and Las Vegas Raiders on Sunday. But 4.6 fantasy points for Josh Dobbs. 10 for 23, 63 yards, and 21 rushing yards. And then he got benched in the fourth quarter for Nick Mullins. So, assuming he maybe plays next week, this is for real, and don't play him. So that's just the warning shot there. Don't roll him out. But this is for real. This sucks. I heard a comparison. People saying that the carriage turned into a pumpkin. The Cinderella story ran out. Yep. Like it was there and then it's gone. One day and then the other. Disappointing stuff. DeAndre Swift, 3.9 fantasy points. He is a guy that was helping people get to winning records in leagues this season, and this is his third straight week under 10 fantasy points. Nothing in the PPR game against the Cowboys on Sunday night. This is for real. I don't know if I feel confident starting DeAndre Swift after 3 straight weeks under 10 points. I mean, I know he helped you get here, but I think you may have to pivot if you have another option.
I don't know how many other options are better than DeAndre Swift on a person's team. That's the only reason that I will just have to say Fluke, almost as if like it doesn't matter if it's Fluke or for real, because how many people have like an elite running back on their bench and they've been rolling out DeAndre Swift? Like,
sure.
I'm torn between DeAndre Swift and Austin Eckler and Derrick Henry. I know someone that has that as their team, and they have to make the decision every week. No, it's not me.
Oh, okay.
It's not me.
Got it.
But she just made playoffs, barely.
All right.
Barely. But that's the kind of situation where it's like, unless you happen to have 2 third round or better running backs on your team from fantasy ADP, I think you just stick with it.
I'm going to give you 2 players. I want to ask you if you play DeAndre Swift or this player before we move on.
Okay.
Would you play DeAndre Swift or Jerome Ford this week against the Bears?
Swift.
Okay. Would you play Jerome Ford or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who just had 15 opportunities for the Kansas City Chiefs? If
Jerome
Isaiah
Ford
Pacheco,
or
for DeAndre Swift or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if Isaiah Pacheco is out again?
Swift.
Okay. So that's where we're at. Little status check there. In case those are 2 players potentially who could be on a bench that people could be thinking, is this a better play? Stick with Swift there. We'll see how it goes. Calvin Ridley.
I'd still start Swift over Jerick McKinnon, even though McKinnon got a touchdown.
It felt weird that McKinnon got the goal line rushing touchdown, right?
That was odd.
It felt so backwards. I was like,
oh no,
what just happened there? I saw it and I was like, hey, CEH gets in the end zone. Good spot start for the week. And then it was like, oh, why does that guy look thinner?
Wait a minute.
What's happening here? Anyway, Calvin Ridley, 13 targets. 9.3 isn't great, but you can't ignore 13. You got to keep rolling them out. No Christian Kirk on 13 targets. You got to keep rolling with them. Devon Achane, 12.1, down game. He is in my lineup every single week, no matter what.
Like keep rolling him out.
You have to keep playing him. Maybe this is the beginning of a Patrick Mahomes situation where like you gotta play him. Because it's like, you're right. Raheem Mostert does get like the inside the 10-yard line carries, and Devon Achane does need to like kind of break a long one to be able to like have that kind of relevance. I mean, obviously against the Washington Commanders, he had a couple touchdowns inside the 10-yard line. That was kind of like after the fact of Raheem Mostert being out, stuff like that. But I don't know. This will be interesting to monitor. I want to come back to this episode if we get to the end of the year. And I was like, yeah, he didn't score more than 14 points the rest of the season. Wow, it's just like Mahomes. All right, cool. There we go. Anyway, we'll see what happens there. But keep rolling out Devon Achane. Kenneth Walker III, 9.4 fantasy points. I guess a tough 49ers defense. I think The carry count wasn't great. They were throwing the ball a lot. That's kind of how you can win against the 49ers. So I think, again, with the running back landscape here, if we're starting DeAndre Swift, I think you got to keep starting Kenneth Walker the third too, just with that upside. So
I agree.
That's where we're at on that one.
Just may not be league winning anymore.
Yeah.
I think Charbonnet is starting to make a splash.
Definitely. He definitely is. Yeah. It's something worth noting, but I think you keep KW3 in the lineup. Last one here is Jordan Addison, 4.7. For real. So sad, especially if Nick Mullins is playing quarterback with Justin Jefferson back. Just 3 targets in this game. In a game where you're desperately prying for offense, for some sort of movement for your offense.
Yeah.
Where Justin Jefferson isn't playing because he gets hurt early in the game. And you're a hot first-round rookie wide receiver. And you have 3 targets. That sucks. That's real bad. That's real bad. I am not.
It's real bad.
I am not excited about playing Jordan Addison. And here's the thing, really. I think Jordan Addison is a drop candidate. I know that sounds crazy, but like, are you starting Jordan Addison any of the next 3 weeks in your lineup?
No.
If it's Nick Mullins.
No, I think he goes on your bench.
And Justin Jefferson comes back. Right, he goes on your bench. So like, if you're in need of like if you want to like plan ahead, if you're in the league that still plays with defenses and you want to plan ahead for like a defensive matchup, I think you drop Jordan Addison for real. I think it's legit. I think it's a legitimate option for you. It's disappointing because I had such high hopes.
Depending on your starting roster and depending on the depth of your wide receivers, like if you only have 4 wide receivers and should one of them be hurt, you can keep Jordan Addison. But yes, it's a lot to give up Jordan Addison, but you're not going to start him, so I guess you might as well.
No, you're not. It's
terrible.
It's disappointing, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll just give an example. I did this with I'm in a league where I needed some more running back depth. After Thursday night's game, when it was announced that Pacheco was going to be out, I dropped Deontay Johnson to pick up Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Because it's a similar situation. It's like, I'm not starting Deontay Johnson any of the 3 weeks. We talked about it, Wes, so you convinced me. It was like, you didn't tell me drop Deontay Johnson, but it's just like, I have really good receivers in that league. So that's also a point of like, that's where I kind of am at. But I'm not going to start Deontay Johnson. So if you're in a situation where like you really think there's somebody on the waiver wire who can help you more than Jordan Addison, I'm not scared to drop him, dude. If I'm not feeling confident about him in the playoffs with Nick Mullins, that's just kind of where I'm at here. I don't know. Listen, that's it for Fluke or For Real. Thanks for hanging out with us. This is a hefty episode for you before we get into round 1 of the playoffs. We're going to go over a quick waiver wire, and then we're going to do a really quick Thursday Night Football preview and then close out the show. Waiver wires going into the fantasy football playoffs are scary. But I actually think there's some legitimate names here that you should put in some claims for. Starting out with a pretty clear one here is Ezekiel Elliott. He's only owned in 72% of leagues, which is shocking that more than 25% of leagues don't have Ezekiel Elliott owned. But he had 30 opportunities and 91% snap share. He is the workhorse back for the New England Patriots on a football team that is going to try and win games, so it seems. He's going to be used. 91% snap share is absurd. So if Ezekiel Elliott is out there, very easily go pick him up. Now, this one's from my Justin Herbert owners who have made playoffs.
I had a feeling.
You're looking for a replacement? You better go pick up Joe Flacco, baby. You better go pick up Joe Flacco. He is owned in just 9% of leagues. But like I mentioned earlier, 89 attempts over the last 2 weeks. And his schedule for the first 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs is fantastic. It's the same as Kyler Murray's, where I'm starting him in my other leagues. He gets Chicago and Houston. And then in the fantasy football championship, he gets the Jets. But we'll see what happens. If you listen, get yourself there by picking up and playing Joe Flacco, and then we'll see what happens in the fantasy championship. I am starting Joe Flacco in a league in round 1 of the fantasy championships next week. I am terrified but it's something you have to do. Justin Herbert owners, unless you had a backup quarterback already, hopefully you did. But if you didn't, Joe Flacco is the one to go pick up, not Jake Browning. Joe Flacco, get him on your roster, starting him week 1. Let's go, dude.
Okay, so it is Joe Flacco instead of Jake Browning, just for any clarification. Yeah. So I'm glad you said that. Number 2 of my 3 points here, because I totally agree. Joe Flacco is the man. And thank you for the reminder of Zeke and how great he was Thursday, because people may be forgetting about that. He's the number 1 priority.
Yeah, number one running back in week 14. And fantasy football.
Yeah, he was. It was fantastic. Number 2, dude, Joe Flacco has a revenge game against the Jets.
Dude, I know.
Okay, dude, he was great. He was great because it was. Hold on. Against the Browns, he came back to win.
Yeah.
When he started in place of Zach Wilson. So imagine having the cojones of Joe Flacco to be like, boom, I beat you. Boom, I beat you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm the GOAT. Joe Flacco for MVP.
Yeah.
No doubt. Okay. Yeah. Number 3. I know we're in podcast mode, okay? So we've got our hot take wires. Those coils are burning, right? But let me ask you something, okay?
Okay.
We just talked about in our Fluke for Real segment about Patrick Mahomes being someone you bench. Okay?
Okay.
Do you feel like you can look the camera in the eye and say in this microphone that Joe Flacco should be started in place of Patrick Mahomes for the playoffs? Take your time.
Joe Flacco against the Chicago Bears or Patrick Mahomes against the New England Patriots? It's Flacco season, baby. It's Flacco season, dude. I'm serious. You with the track record of Mahomes, with a tougher matchup against Chicago, it's like, dude, I think you start Joe Flacco over Patrick Mahomes this week. It's absurd to say, but Mahomes has been terrible for fantasy this year. Flacco's been 20-plus points each of the first 2 games, and he's throwing the ball a ton. Oh. He's got the great matchup. Joe Flacco over Mahomes, 100%. Yeah. Joe Flacco is going to be a playoff hero. Yeah, for sure. 100%. Wes, hit me with your waiver wires. And then we'll do a brief Thursday Night Football preview to close out the show.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you went first because I feel like your waiver wires are the clear, obvious ones to go target in order, and mine are the 3rd and 4th options, and I think that worked out well in our plan. I think it's important to prepare, again, we're in playoff scenario, to look at what other teams may need, prepare in the event of any injuries, any roster changes, whatever it may be. If something were to happen to someone else's team, how can you prepare yourself so that the person you're playing against does not pick up these particular players, such as Tajay Spears of the Tennessee Titans, who just had a fantastic PPR night against the Miami Dolphins under the lights. 17 points. We've mentioned him many times on the show. There's a chance that this could transpire into something. It may just be something that they begin to use more next season. But when you have someone that is seeing the snap counts that he is getting, the kind of rapport that is beginning to build with Will Levis, there's something there that I think is important enough to pick up. Maybe use a waiver wire on Tajay Spears. The 4th and final waiver wire that we will mention on the show. Put a pin in Chase Brown, man. I don't know. That was kind of an exciting performance, very Keaton Mitchell-esque to me. There might be something that happens with the Bengals and the way that they're using a lot of players. The yak potential from Chase Brown was pretty exciting. There's a little bit of Devon Achane flash that happened. It's not just from last week. He had something from the week before as well. So I've got my eye on Chase Brown. I'm probably not going to use a waiver wire to get him, but I will wake up Wednesday morning when the transactions have cleared and probably go get him right away and not spend fab on him or my waiver wire order on him, but just throwing out something there. Because if something happens to Mixon, Chase Brown might be in for a sweet role. Same thing for Derrick Henry. If he was to go down, Tajay Spears would be in for a wonderful championship run. So those are my waiver wire ads to follow behind Noah's fantastic start.
Yeah, this is the season to be doing that as you get into the playoffs. And it leads into kind of your first point, Wes, of look at what your opponent might need. Check out and see if any of the key handcuffs are available, and Chase Brown being one of them for sure. Because as we get into the fantasy playoffs, the waiver ads are going to be very clear if a Joe Mixon goes down, if a Tony Pollard goes down, if a Christian McCaffrey goes down. So Chase Brown included, but also check and see maybe Rico Dowdle has shown some flashes as well, Elijah Mitchell potentially, but Chase Brown especially there after a good performance. Definitely take a look there for sure. I think it's fantastic. That is going to be our waiver ads, and now a brief Thursday Night Football because, listen, we didn't really sign up for eating sticks and AOC against each other on Thursday night, but we're here, so that's what we have. It'd be a flake, a floozy to give you must starts and risky starts and don't starts for this game. So instead, I just want to outline the three names you're probably considering for this game. Like we spoke earlier, Keenan Allen went 6 for 68 on 8 targets with eating sticks. Keep rolling them out. Temporary expectations. Austin Eckler had a 21% target share with eating sticks. That's a good thing to see when you've been waiting for Austin Eckler to come out. So encouraging signs, maybe they'll use him more. I'd say I'd continue to roll him out. And you play Devontae Adams because he's Devontae Adams. That's where you land on that one as well. Keep an eye on Josh Jacobs' status. He may not be playing in this game, and I'm not going to rush to the waiver wire to get Amir Abdullah or Zamir White, whoever's behind him in that depth chart there. So those are really the three guys that are going to be fantasy relevant in this game. I don't think it's worth taking shots on anybody else. That's it. Thursday night's going to suck again.
Yep. Eating sticks versus AOC. That is exactly what the schedulers anticipated.
Yeah, that's what we signed up for December prime time, baby. Come on. Listen, that's going to do it for the episode. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Big chunk of info for you on this one as we get into week 1 of the fantasy playoffs. Let us know which of our top waiver ads you're going to be adding. Drop it in the comments. Let us know. And let us know your playoff path. Let us know, did you clinch a first round bye? You got to just win your way out. Are you the 8th seed fighting for a Cinderella story? Let us know. We're excited to hear about it. Once again, make sure you're following us on all of our socials at 4th and Troll, on Facebook at 4th and Troll Fantasy. And make Teddy the Troll smile. My name is Noah Selby.
I'm Wes Selby.
And this has been 4th and Troll Fantasy.
4th and Troll Fantasy is a production of FQ Media and Selby Artistic Workshop.